The rain was coming down in sheets as I drove home, the wipers on my old Volvo working overtime. I am Remy, 46, and I manage a small architectural firm in Austin, Texas. It wasn't the weather that had me on edge, though. It was the conversation it had with my wife, Florence, that morning. "I have to work late tonight, Remy," Shed said, not meeting my eyes as she buttered her toast. "Big project. You know how it is." Florence was a real estate agent, successful and driven. Late nights were part of the job, but something about her tone felt off. Distant. I brushed it aside. We'd been married for 18 years and I trusted her. Or at least I thought I did. When I got home that evening, the house was dark. I flipped on the lights, the familiar glow doing little to dispel the unease that had settled in my stomach. I called out for Florence, but only silence answered. "She must still be at work," I muttered, trying to reassure myself. I fixed a quick dinner, a simple pasta dish, and ate alone, the television providing the only company. By 10 p.m. I was starting to worry. Florence always called if she was going to be this late. I tried her cell, straight to voicemail. My anxiety ratcheted up another notch. I paced the living room, replaying our conversation from the morning. Had I missed something? Was she stressed about something she wasn't telling me then? A thought struck me. A stupid, irrational thought, but one I couldn't shake. I went to her office. It was in a trendy part of downtown, easily accessible, but I hadn't been there in years. I pulled up to the building, the rain still pouring down. The lights were off, the windows dark and empty. Of course, I thought, feeling foolish. She's probably just stuck in traffic or her phone died. But as I was about to leave, I noticed a car parked around back. A sleek, silver BMW. It looked familiar, too familiar. It was the car of one of Florence's colleagues, a guy named Archibald. He was always a little too friendly with her at company events, a little too eager to offer her a ride home. My heart began to pound in my chest. I parked my car and got out, the rain soaking me instantly. I walked around to the back of the building, my footsteps echoing in the deserted alleyway. There was a single light on in Florence's office, a soft glow emanating from the window. I crept closer, my breath catching in my throat. I peered through the glass, my blood turning to ice in my veins. There they were, Florence and Archibald, locked in a passionate embrace. His hands were all over her and she was kissing him back with an intensity I hadn't seen in years. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My vision blurred and a wave of nausea washed over me. It couldn't be real. It had to be a nightmare. But it wasn't. It was my wife, the woman I loved, betraying me in the most intimate way possible. I stumbled back to my car, the rain masking the tears streaming down my face. I drove home in a daze, the image of Florence and Archibald seared into my brain. I couldn't think, I couldn't feel. I was numb. When Florence finally came home around midnight, she found me sitting in the dark, staring blankly at the wall. "Remy, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I didn't say anything. I just stood up and walked over to her. I looked her in the eyes, trying to find the woman I thought I knew, but all I saw was a stranger. "I know," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Her face paled. "Know what I know about you and Archibald," I said, the words like shards of glass in my throat. She gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Remind, I don't," I said, cutting her off. "Just don't. I saw you at the office." Tears welled up in her eyes. "It was a mistake," she sobbed. "It didn't mean anything." "A mistake," I repeated, my voice rising. "You were practically devouring him, Florence. How can you call that a mistake?" She sank to the floor, her body shaking with sobs. "I am so sorry, Remy. I don't know what came over me." I looked at her, my heart breaking all over again. I wanted to believe her, to forgive her, but the image of her in Archibald's arms was too vivid, too painful. "I can't do this, Florence," I said, my voice trembling. "I can't stay married to you." The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and painful conversations. Florence begged me to reconsider, to give her another chance, but I was adamant. The trust was broken and I couldn't see a way to repair it. I moved out of our house and into a small apartment downtown. It was lonely, but it was also a relief. I needed space to breathe, to heal. As I started to piece my life back together, I learned some disturbing things about Archibald. He had a reputation for sleeping with married women. He was a predator, preying on vulnerable women like Florence. I felt a surge of anger, not just at Florence, but at Archibald. He had not only betrayed me but had also manipulated my wife. I wanted to make him pay. I started digging into his background, using my connections to uncover his dirty secrets. It didn't take long. Archibald was involved in some shady real estate deals, skimming money off the top and hiding it in offshore accounts. I gathered all the evidence I could find and presented it to the authorities. They launched an investigation, and within weeks, Archibald was facing serious charges. His career was ruined, his reputation destroyed. I felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that I had brought him to justice. But it didn't erase the pain. It didn't bring back the years I had lost. One evening, a few months after the divorce was finalized, I received a phone call. It was Florence. "Remy, I need your help," she said, her voice trembling. "I am in trouble." I hesitated. I didn't owe her anything. She had betrayed me, broken my heart, but I couldn't just abandon her. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice cold. "Impregnant," she said, her voice barely audible. "And it's not yours." The news hit me like a punch to the gut. Pregnant, with Archibald's baby. It was almost too much to bear. "What do you want me to do?" I asked, my voice flat. "Archibald has left me," she sobbed. "He doesn't want anything to do with me or the baby. I'm all alone, Remy. Please, I don't know what to do." I thought about all the pain she had caused me, all the lies and betrayal. I should just hang up, walk away, and let her deal with the consequences of her actions. But I couldn't. Despite everything, I still cared about her. I still remembered the good times, the love we had shared. "Where are you?" I asked. I drove to her apartment, my mind racing. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I couldn't leave her alone. When I arrived, she was a mess. She was pale and thin, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She looked like a shadow of the woman I had once loved. I sat down beside her and took her hand. "It's going to be okay," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "I'll help you." The next few months were challenging. I helped Florence find a doctor, a place to live, and a support group for single mothers. I didn't do it because I loved her, but because it was the right thing to do. When the baby was born, a little girl named Serafina, I visited them in the hospital. Florence looked exhausted but happy, holding her daughter in her arms. "Thank you, Remy," she said, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I don't know what I would have done without you." I looked at the baby, her tiny face so innocent and pure. I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness, knowing that she would grow up without a father. "You're going to be a good mother, Florence," I said, my voice soft. "And I'll always be here for Serafina if you need me." I left the hospital that day with a strange sense of peace. I had forgiven Florence, not because she deserved it, but because I deserved it. I had moved on with my life, and I was finally free. I started dating again, and eventually I met someone new. Her name was Zelia, and she was everything Florence wasn't: honest, kind, and supportive. We fell in love, and a year later we got married. Florence never remarried. Archibald was a pariah. She raised Serafina on her own, working hard to provide for her daughter. We remained in touch, and I saw Serafina occasionally. She was a bright, happy child, and I was glad to be a part of her life. Looking back, I realized that Florence's betrayal had been the catalyst for a new beginning. It had forced me to confront my own weaknesses and to discover my own strength. It had taught me the importance of forgiveness and the power of moving on. It wasn't the life I had planned, but it was a good life. And in the end, that's all that mattered.